All right, guys, the other day I had mentioned that with this 1970 Ford Mustang here that there was way too much negative camber on this car. In fact, the front tires were cambered so far in, which would be negative camber, that when you drove the car down the road, it was all squirrely and stuff. So I'm going to show you guys here. I'm going to try and make an adjustment to the camber, and I think I figured out why this thing has so much negative camber, and hopefully it'll be an easy fix. All right, so here we have the, obviously I have the wheel off, and show you guys here. So there's the upper control arm, and on these cars, the upper control arm is not adjustable. So there's basically just a bar that goes through there. You've got nuts on both sides, and basically you just keep those greased, and your control arm moves up and down over top of that. There's bushings in there, and those bushings need grease. But the upper control arm is not adjustable. So on these first gen Mustangs here, it's actually the lower control arm. Let's see if I can get into position here. I'll show you guys. So it's actually your lower control arm is where your camber adjustment is. And you can see here I've already got a 3/4 socket on the nut here for the camber adjustment on the lower control arm. And you can see that this ring that goes around the bolt is oblong shaped, right? There's a whole lot more material on this side than there is on this side. And you see this little hole here. This little hole would indicate maximum adjustment. So you can see that this cam ring is almost to the maximum adjustment point, but that's in the wrong direction. So this is actually pushing this lower control arm out, which is therefore creating negative camber on the top of the tire. So that's why the tire is leaning in. So the top of the tire is leaning in towards the chassis. And that's because this lower control arm is basically adjusted all the way out. So it's pushing the bottom of the tire all the way out. So this should be relatively simple. I'm hoping I don't need to get on the back side of this bolt to the nut that's on the back side. I shouldn't have to though. Really, just with a 3/4 inch socket, I should be able to rotate this bolt, provided it's not seized. And basically all I want to do is reduce the radius of this washer that's going around here, because it's pushing up against this plate. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a plate here. And so it's pushing up against the plate, which is pushing the control arm out. So all I need to do is just rotate this. I could actually go in either direction. Just rotate it to where the radius of this curve starts to decrease. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna pull the lower control arm in. Now technically, yes, you would wanna do this on an alignment rack. But camber is one of those adjustments that's really easy to visually see with the tire on the car. And a little bit of negative camber isn't gonna kill you. But this car just had way too much negative camber. So let's go ahead and see if we can't adjust the camber on this. All right, so I'm actually going to use a wobble attachment here, which hopefully can navigate me around this exhaust header. There we go. And we'll just grab we'll try with a regular ratchet here first. Move this guy out of the way. And I mean, this is really 50-50. I could go in either direction here, so let me try pulling it towards me. There we go. Oh, that actually moved pretty easy. So let me give a little bit more of a pull on that. All right, let me see where we're at. here, so I don't know if you guys can see that. Try and get you in here. So you can see I was able to rotate that cam down, which should have pulled this lower control arm in just a little bit. So I'm actually going to go ahead and put the tire on, because that's going to give me a better visual on what type of adjustment we're looking at here. All right, so I got the wheel back on here, and you can see that that tire definitely does not have negative camber right now as it's sitting there. So if anything, we've got a little bit of positive camber, which is what I would expect, because I basically maxed out the camber adjustment in the positive direction. And the reason I went full max was because I wanted to see a visual change here in the camber, just to make sure that that adjustment is going to do what I want it to do. Now, you can't really adjust camber with the weight off of the suspension like we have here. So if you were to take your car to a garage to have it professionally aligned, the alignment rack that the car sits on, the tire is actually on a plate, and that plate allows the tire to move around. It kind of sits on ball bearings, which allows you to have weight on the suspension and be able to make adjustments to your alignment. Since obviously we don't have an alignment rack here, we don't have that benefit. So really the best way to judge whether or not the camber adjustment is correct is you've got to set the car back down on its weight. You don't have to completely take it down off the jack, but get enough weight onto the suspension to kind of let it settle down, and then we'll take a look at where the adjustment is. So I'm actually going to let me throw the tire on the other side, and we'll do the same over there and lower the car down and see if that fixed our negative camber issue. All right, I got both wheels on the car, and I set it down on the ground, and the camber looks much better. Don't let that angle fool you there. Hang on, I have this on half a zoom. Let me go back to that. So it looks like there's still some negative camber, but that's actually due to how the fender is positioned. But looking at it down here on the ground, the camber looks much better. There may still be a tad of negative camber, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was before. Before, you could, I mean, this thing was so jacked up, you could see that the top of the tire was much farther in than the bottom. This is a lot closer to where it needs to be. And now I am maxed out on the camber adjustment at this point, so both sides are maxed out. And if it needs more adjustment than that, I think I know what the issue is. So this car has a big block motor, and it appears to me anyway, of course it would be impossible to tell, but in all likelihood these are the factory springs. They're either factory or they're softer than factory for weight transfer reasons, because that gives you some traction out back. But it's possible that due to the softer springs, that's actually creating some negative camber, because the car is sitting lower than it should be. I'll let it down all the way on the jack, and you can see, so now we're all the way down on the jack, and you can see how low the car sits up here in the front compared to the back. And again, she might have softer springs on the front, just to try to help aid in the weight transfer and traction. But at least for now, I think this camber is much better than what it was before, and the car should drive better. So then the only other issue would be maybe trying to get the front of the car up a little bit, just to get some more ground clearance underneath the here, due to the you see that header pipe. You know, that's probably I'm just gonna guess 2 inches off the ground. Not too terrible, but you ride around in Pennsylvania with that low, there's a good chance you'll bottom out, especially if my assumptions are correct that we have soft springs on the front. Yeah, I think if you hit a pretty good bump, that header pipe has a good chance of impacting the ground. So I would like to get a little bit more clearance there and try and get the car to sit just a tad more level, because we're not going to be drag racing this thing. It's just a street cruiser. So not too interested in weight transfer and all that kinds of stuff for drag racing purposes. Anyway, so yeah, just a quick video there on how you can adjust the camber on first generation Mustangs. There's no upper control arm adjustment. There's only lower control arm through that cam bolt, and it's pretty easy. Just put a 3/4 socket on there, and if it isn't rusted to hell, it should move for you. And that's how you adjust the camber on this thing. As far as adjusting the toe, really you should take it to a professional shop to get that done. That's a little bit more tricky to do here in the garage. Maybe we'll do that for a video down the road. Thanks.